I am Cigus Vanni, and I am the workshop leader. I will be taking you through writing the college essay. I had 15 years experience working at a college, including 5 years directly in the admissions office. So I've read, I guess, about 9 Skillion essays. Skillion is it's kind of like a gazillion, not quite a cajillion. That's like the biggest one. That's a lot. It's just a lot to do. I worked as assistant dean at the college. I taught classes in education and psychology. And then I had 26 years as a high school counselor. My last job was at Cherry Hill High School West in New Jersey. Been retired for a few years, helping people in the neighborhood and volunteering for schools in Philadelphia. And my able assistant, Caitlin Rodriguez, will be staffing the chat and giving me feed. If you have any comments or questions, you can put them in the chat. Although we do have a small group, and you could probably just as easily unmute and ask the questions as we go. So I'm going to start this by doing some general comments about writing the essay. And then when I finish with that, and there are questions, that's perfectly fine. Then talk about some ways to get started, how to project topics and get an idea of what might be appropriate for you to write to do. One thing I am not going to do, and I never do this, is show sample essays. Here's the reason. I don't want you to use those essays as a model, because then you might start writing your essays like those essays, and they're not yours. They might work for Tom or Jerry or Matilda, but they're not going to work for you because they're not your essays. So I'm not going to show examples of 50 essays that got me into Harvard. Like, no, it got them into Harvard, and it actually didn't, because the essay is only one part of the college application. Let's say you did apply to Harvard and you had a B- average, and you had never taken any honors or AP or IB classes. It really wouldn't matter what essay you had written. You're not getting into Harvard. Sorry to do. So let me do my screen share, and we will get into the business of the evening. Lovely evening, isn't it? Not. Right, so let me go to slideshow from the beginning. So you notice that the subtitle is the importance of being genuine. And that's what this is all about. And that's why I'm loath to show model essays, because these have to be your essays, okay? Write your own essay. This is not about plagiarism. You already know that. You've had that probably since middle school, people telling you you can't copy somebody else's work. Some of the schools use turnitin.com. Your colleges will use, I guess you would call them search engines, to make sure that you are doing your own work, and they're much more powerful than turnitin.com. But this is to encourage you to use your own voice. Your essay is the best essay that you can write, the one that I'm going to read, and I'm going to look at how it applies to the rest of your application, and I'm going to see the same person in that application, in the letters of recommendation, in the activities that you do, in the courses that you've taken, and with the essay. So don't buy those books. They have 50 of the best college essays ever to do. Those essays work for somebody else, not for you. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you read a couple of these essays and you found one that you really liked, and you thought, I'm going to model mine after this. So you're thinking about risk and exploration, and you write an essay about the US space program. It's a good essay. I like it. Got a couple of big words in it, like refrigerator. It's a good essay, right? But then I look at the rest of your application, and you're not in any clubs or activities that have anything to do with science. You haven't taken physics in high school. And none of your recommendations mention your love of science. So you know what? That essay is meaningless. It's empty because it's not you. It's not genuine for you. And I'll give you a great example of the plagiarism business. There was way back, gosh, this must be nearly 20 years ago or so now. There was a young woman who worked as an intern for the Camden Courier-Post newspaper. And she was one of 8 high school students, and they were all asked to give a copy of the essay that they wrote. Well, this young woman, I'm going to be polite here, and let's just say nobody really liked her. She just was not a particularly likable person. She'd been admitted early to Harvard. So her essay is printed, or let's say getting ready to be printed. And the editor of the Courier Post looks at it and goes, whoa, wait a minute, I've read that before. And it turns out that she had lifted word for word several sentences from a speech that Bill Clinton had written. So remember what I said? Nobody really liked this person. So he contacted Harvard, and Harvard ran it through. It wasn't at that time. Colleges didn't run things through, turn it in, but they ran it through their own, and they were like, and they rescinded her admission. So plagiarism? No. Write your own essay. Let me hear your unique voice. Okay. Most colleges will ask you to do a personal statement. Most colleges. Are there some schools that don't read the personal statement? There are. And you know a few of them, Penn State, University of Pittsburgh, they don't read the personal statement. But then there are also some schools that will ask you to write supplementary essays. So there's the one in the main menu, your main, your main personal statement. Then you may have some other ones to do. You can't just rip these off. You just can't. You're right. Your reader's going to tell. Writing takes time. So you need to draft. You need to revise. You need to draft. You need to revise. This is like lather, rinse, repeat. Remember that from the shampoos to do that? So you will have choices of what the topics are on which to write your essay. If you use the Common Application, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a tool where any number of colleges have agreed to accept one application for any student that applies. There are more than 1,000 members in the Common Application. So there's 7 choices. There's another application called the Coalition, which has 114 members, that has 5 choices. Okay. So number 1, you don't select the theme about which you cannot write with grace, skill, and insight. And number 2, this is going to be very strange. I encourage you not to even look at the prompts. What? Not look at the prompts? No, don't look at the prompts. Write the essay that you want to write. Don't be restrained by these prompts. You don't have to look at this and go, oh, geez, I have to find it. No. Number 1, topic of your choice is one of the choices for both of these. So you really can write about what you want to write about. And number 2, no admissions officers that I know look to see which prompt you selected. They're not going to look at the button that you no, they're just going to read. They're just going to read. So let me hear your unique voice. I should be able to read this essay and hear you talking to me. Okay, now not in slang, not in street language, not like that, but like this is you being natural. You're not throwing in big giant words just to be impressive, right? If there's a place where you can use a more sophisticated, yes, absolutely. But don't do it just to show, oh, look at me, what do I do? Now here's something really important. Do not write an English paper. This is not what you would do for honors English. You're not defending a thesis. You're not supporting an argument. You're not drawing a conclusion. You're 17. You haven't concluded yet. So this is not the standard. Oh, here's the first paragraph. This is my argument. Here's 3 paragraphs that follow. This proves my argument. And here's my conclusion. No, 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 no. This is a story. This is a diary. This is a journal. This is about you. This is about you. Jump right in, take some risks, be clever, don't be cute. Cute, bad. Clever, good. Hey, this is not an English paper. Okay. Now, can you be so creative as to be out of this world? Unlikely. There may be some schools that would be okay with that, schools that are looking for particularly creative students, but I would not use poetry because it's an essay, not a poem to do. I would not write my essay in a language other than English. You laugh, right? But people will do that. But whatever you do, you're not writing as if you're writing for your English teacher. Avoid trite and overused topics. Now, I'm going to guess that you've probably heard the opposite of this, or maybe the opposite side of this. You've probably been told to avoid controversial or provocative topics. So don't write about race, don't write about religion, don't write about politics. Well, I have to say this. A lot of the topics colleges hear about over and over again. So going to camp, taking a trip abroad, playing sports. Colleges get hundreds, if not thousands of essays that cover those topics. And if you really, really, really want to write about them, they have to be truly, truly genuine, truly moving, and singular, different from what the college has heard previous to that. You really want to move your reader. Think of it that way. You want to move your reader, make them laugh, make them cry, make them scream, not in a bad way, right, to do. I've had a couple essays that have made me scream in a bad way to do, so that the reader really knows what's really behind that essay is yours, is absolutely yours. So let me give an example of this. Back when I was at Cherry Hill, one of my students wanted to go into nursing and open up her own clinic for women's health. She was pretty ahead of the curve, pretty sophisticated, and really up on the topics of women's health. At the time, she was a junior, at the time, there was a drug called Gardasil that was making its way through testing for the FDA. Gardasil is used to prevent HPV, human papillomavirus. Human papillomavirus can create situations, especially for females, that can be horrendous. Cervical cancer, vaginal cancer, all kinds of horrendous things. Not just for young women, young men can get HPV as well. So she didn't understand why this was not being authorized. And until she found out that there were groups that were trying to stop the FDA because they were campaigning on the point of view that this is giving young women permission to have sex. Like if they knew that they couldn't get these diseases, why would they not have sex? Okay, now that to me is as ridiculous as it may sound, but Gardasil was delayed in being approved for 14 months. 14 months. So we're now into senior year, and this young woman's favorite aunt died of cervical cancer because Gardasil was not available. The essay that she wrote was dripping with anger. wow, it was so powerful, but it was so her. And she was admitted to her first choice school. She finished her nursing degree, and she now operates a women's health clinic up in the Poconos. So don't stay away from controversial topics. But let me do another turn on this. Do not assume that you are expected to reveal trauma or that you need to make these people feel sorry for you. You are not looking for sympathy, you're looking for empathy. You're looking for them to understand that you had an emotional experience with something. Again, if you want to write about that. But the essay has to show me as your reader that you are working through this, that you are not still in the valley where you were when this started. And don't fall into the myth about, well, I'm from the city. Of course, I've had a terrible life. Maybe you actually didn't have a terrible life. And maybe people in the colleges need to know that city people shouldn't be stereotyped that way. They shouldn't expect trauma essays. But let me go one step farther here, just to make sure that you understand. If you write an essay, and I read this essay, and you're 17, and I'm not 17, and this essay tells me about how you were sexually assaulted, or neglected, or emotionally abused, if you don't tell me that this has been regulated and reported, I must report it. I am a mandated agent. I'm calling the hotline and I'm reporting it. That is my mandate. I cannot not report it. So be careful. Okay to be controversial, right? But be careful here. Be careful. Okay? Don't make
If I
assumptions.
can add something real quick, that
Sure.
like one advice that my English teacher also gave me, if it's like a struggle to come up with topics, is that, and something that I did in my essay, was focusing on a small moment in my life, because the smaller moments can make the biggest and grandest essays, instead of focusing on the biggest like achievement that you ever did, because sometimes the biggest achievements are the ones that you write so little about, or that you come to find out that you can't write much about it. So focusing on really small things that really influenced you as a person was a really big, I guess, piece of advice that helped me.
That was a great piece of advice, Caitlin. Thank you. Thank you for that. And it strikes me now, you may not think that some of these experiences were particularly interesting because you've lived them. You can't step outside of your life. But to an outside reader, they may be fascinating. Every day you may go outside and collect bugs from the backyard, and you now catalog them, and you now become an insect champion, and you're now at the Academy of Natural Sciences. You know what? That's really cool. Now to you, it's like doing what? It's like doing everything. This is normal to you, not normal to me as your reader. So the next one, don't make assumptions about your reader. Okay, you don't have to. This is not your abuela reading. This is not somebody who's 70 years old. Well, there's like 5 admissions officers that are in the 70s. Virtually all of the people who read your essays in admissions are in their 20s. They're not that much older than you. So don't insult their intelligence and try to write like you're Joe Biden. Like if you use the word malarkey, I know immediately you're trying to be Joe Biden. No. Be yourself here. Yeah, you can do some slang. You can do some vernacular, like some language of the streets. 20-year-olds are going to know who yay is. 70-year-olds might not know who yay is. They might think you made a mistake with that. So Don't assume that you've got older readers and they won't know. You're writing to somebody who will know for that. And then never let Bill Gates be your only editor. Spell check, autocorrect, they're not going to catch everything. You need proofreaders. You need human beings that you trust. You also need human beings from whom you can take feedback, even if it's maybe not what you want to hear. Oh, you don't love me. Yes, I do love you. That's why I'm trying to help you write a better essay. My favorite one here, I had a student that applied to the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. She misspelled the word business. Autocorrect didn't realize she was spelling business, but she looked up and she went, oh, and put it in. And she ended up applying to the Wharton School of Bunnies. The Wharton School of Bunnies. I don't know about you, but I would love to go there. The Wharton School, wouldn't that be the best? The Wharton School of Bunnies to do. So please make sure that you have human beings that are going to capture this for you and help you through it. Okay. All right. So that's this piece. These are sort of like general things to do about the essay. I'll stop here for a minute. Any questions that people have?
I have one question.
Sure. Go ahead, Ella.
So, like, say I want to do like creative writing and major in like some type of creative writing that they would have. So, like, I also do video editing as like a hobby, but that's not what I want to go to school for. So I know that like people have told me to write the essay based on what you have now talked about in your application. So if I already talked about writing, could I talk about video editing as my hobby, or would that be kind of unrelated to like what I want to go in for college?
Bella, you talk about you, and you don't necessarily talk about specific goals, except in the supplementary essays. Most of the supplementary essays are asking more specifically. Or if you were applying outside the United States, they don't want a personal statement. They want this kind of essay. So why do you want to major in this? What have you done in the past to show me that you're really interested in it? Why do you want to do it at our school? And what do you think you're going to do afterwards? And maybe you can do like one or two sentences like, oh, I play volleyball, but that's it. But that's Europe, that's Asia, that's South America, that's Canada, that's not the US. So the personal statement, again, can be about virtually anything you want. And yes, it should be something that's not perhaps directly in the application, or it can touch on something and embellish something that it's in the application. So the answer is yes, Bella. You can, and you can bring in your interest in creative writing as a part of that. You can tell me a story about how you were doing a video production, and maybe your creative writing abilities helped you with that. So yes, you can absolutely do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sure. Are there topics that you should not write about? Oh yeah, and you know what they are. Sexuality, violence, things like that. No. Were you a victim of? Again, remember what I said about trauma. You can write about that, but you have to be very sensitive to your reader and make sure that they know that you are addressing those issues. So yeah.
I was gonna say another thing about trauma that our teacher told us is that, again, like, these are real people reading it, so it can be very sensitive to those people as well if you're writing about a very traumatic event and then there's no like conclusion to that event. If you don't like, if you just write about it and that's it, it can also like it can be as traumatic to the person reading it as well.
Indeed to do. Okay, so I'm going to go over a couple of ways to think about what kind of essay and which type of essay that you would want to write. Right, so let me pull out some of these. Where are you? Okay, this is, okay, here we go. This is Ethan Sawyer, Ethan, Ethan Sawyer, like Tom Sawyer, Sawyer. Ethan Sawyer is known as the essay guy. And if you go on his website, he has allowed free interchange with a number of the exercises and topics that he's put out. So this, for example, the values exercise. Okay. Now, there's about 100 different values here. Lots of values. They don't have all of them here, but they have quite a few. And what he asks you to do is to pick 10 of them. Right? 10 of them. These are the things that you choose as your top value. No right answers here. No right answers here. So are you somebody that loves to help others? Are you somebody for whom culture is important? Are you somebody who likes to be a leader? So you pick out 10 of these altogether. And you really have to think about this because there's no bad answers here. There truly are no bad answers here. So you do that. You do that. You got your 10, right? So you go, here's Ethan. Hi, Ethan. So you go to the next page, pick out your top 5. Okay, so now you've narrowed. Now you're going to narrow farther. Then you pick out your top 3. And then, again, be honest and be firm with yourself here. Pick out number 1. Pick out number 1. Right? Now, Ethan Sawyer's website will tell you where to go from here. There's a ton of information that he would give you, and I'm going to give you that. The college essay guy is the name of his, and I'll put that in the chat so that you know what that is. Okay? But basically what he's saying is, if you hone in on this one value that's most important to you, that could be your impetus to be able to write your essay. Like you can start from that, and then you can go from there. So let's choose one of these things. Let's say fun. Okay, you really want to write an essay about fun? Sure. You can write an essay about exchanging cultural ideas in a college, about the social life that you anticipate, being with people that you hadn't met before. You know, when I went off to college, I came from an urban area in North Jersey near New York. My roommate was from rural Maine. Rural Maine. His town had 600 people. My block had 500 people. His backyard, he would see moose in his backyard. I would see rats in my backyard. So yes, you can write about fun. You can write about any one of these things, as long as you make it your essay and as long as you make it a genuine essay for you. So cool stuff to do. And here, let me go with this one. Okay. This I love. This also comes from Ethan Sawyer. Right? And this is going to ask you to fill in these columns. So first, challenges, major obstacles in your life. So let's project a few of these here. Family moved 5 times before I got to 10th grade. Father lost his job, out of work for the past 4 years. Diagnosed with scoliosis, lost a whole thing, whatever they might be, the challenges that you've had. Next, effects. What were the repercussions and effects of these challenges? Not your emotions, but like what happened? I had to miss school. I had to stay home and take care of my brother and sister. So the actual effects, the consequences of these challenges. Then we get to the feelings. How did that make you feel? Well, missing school for all that time, I felt isolated. I really need, that's the next one, companionship. I think we all found that out, didn't we? When the pandemic came, we really needed companionship. We really missed that social connection. So here we are. I needed that companionship. Or I had to stay home with how did that make me feel? Used. And so my need would be, how do I express this? How do I tell my parent that this is taking away my childhood, even though I know it's doing a good thing for the family? So you have the challenge, you figure out what the effects were, you describe the feelings that you had, and then from those feelings, you determine what your needs were. So let's take another one of these all the way through. Found out in the middle of middle school that I had a learning disability. Effects. Ended up in a couple of support classes. Feelings. Felt ashamed. Felt inferior. Felt inadequate. Needs. Finding a way to help myself feel purposeful, meaningful, and worthy. Okay, and you can take that through. So the last, that was weird. Huh, okay, sorry. So challenges, obstacles, effects, what happened, how'd you feel about it, what needs came out of it, and then the last two, what did you do about it, what did you learn? So let's go back to I have to stay home and take care of my brother and sister. What did you do about it? I asked my parents to get a sitter. I asked my parents for some reprieve. I asked my parents if I could help them with their homework and then do mine while I'm at whatever you did. And what did you learn? I learned that I think I might have a career being a teacher. Or I really hate children. But again, be honest with yourself with this to do. Let's go with the learning difference, right? I found I had a learning difference. I ended up in some support classes. I felt inadequate. I felt I needed to be told I'm worthwhile. What did you do about it? I worked my butt off and I got myself out of those support classes. What did you learn? You can't hold me back, because that anger I could turn into ambition. Huh. And boy, there's a great essay topic, isn't it? How I turned my anger into ambition. Rather than having this anger consume me and make me depressed, I've decided that I'm going to show everybody around me that I can be successful, that I can be worthy to do that. So that's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing to do. So challenges are the major obstacles. Effects are the repercussion and effects of these, not the emotions, okay? The feelings, the emotions elicited by those challenges. Needs, what were the needs behind these emotions? If you felt isolated, your need might be community. Do, what steps did you take? Learn, what did you learn? Okay? I can almost guarantee you, if you take this particular sheet, and I'll look at, you may have to email me and I can send you this. This is actually in one of my Word documents. So anyway, if you take this and you think up 2 or 3 challenges and work this all the way through, I will almost guarantee you that you will have an essay out of that. Almost guarantee you with it. Because you'll see how the essay develops as you go through with it. Okay, so.
I have one question.
Sure, go ahead.
So the thing that you showed, the previous thing that you showed with that like sheet of like the topics, will you post that in the chat so we have that?
Either that, Bella, or you can email me and I'll send an attachment for you.
Okay,
I
thank you.
also Bella, like after this whole thing is done, I'll ask Cigus to send over anything that he showed or like attachments. And at the end of this, I'm gonna be publishing of course we recorded each session, so they'll be published on like YouTube, and then I'll send out like a big email with those links and all the attachments.
Okay, thank you. And would that include like all the sessions?
That will include all the sessions, so you would get
Okay.
the recordings of all the sessions.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is great to do. Right? So in terms of figuring out when to start your essay, there's really two ways to do this.
Oh, real quick, Cigus, so
Oh.
sorry. Just a time check. Since
Oh.
it's an hour, it is 7:10 right now. So just
Okay.
giving you that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. There's two ways that an essay can come about. Number one is the old bolt of lightning. Bong. That's called an epiphany. You get this great idea and it's like, wow, I can run with this. So maybe some of the things that we've covered today have given you a great idea. Or maybe something happens over the break and you're like, oh. The other way is called percolating. Now, I don't think anybody except my father still has a coffee pot that percolates, because everybody has coffee makers these days. But in the old days, you would put your coffee in an aluminum pot and you would have it boil up and it would percolate. It would go until it was ready. So sometimes that's the way these ideas will come about. You'll have them and this sort of like wander around in your mind, percolating. And then all of a sudden, one of them breaks through and you're like, yeah. This is not unlike the way some relationships work. Sometimes it's love at first sight, like, whoa. And then other times it's, I've been sitting next to her for like 3 years. I didn't realize how much I really like her. It sometimes takes time. Now, if you get to senior year and you haven't percolated yet, then you need to make sure that you do some of these exercises and make it work, make it happen for that. You want to be sure that you give yourself enough time to write these essays effectively. What's my recommendation? I think you should start no later than the end of junior year. Hopefully, your junior English class teachers will spend some time in the spring of junior year going over writing a college essay. Because remember what we said, they are not English papers. It's a different way to write, a different format altogether. I know in the Cherry Hill system, there's an entire week built in to help students begin to write their college essays. So I would say no later than that. You can continue draft, revise over the summer. But again, make sure you have people that can give you feedback with this. Don't rely on Bill Gates. Spell it. And please don't rely on Chat GPT. It's a wonderful program if you haven't used it yet. You can basically ask the AI, the artificial intelligence, any question you want. Hey, AI, here's a prompt from the Common Application, write an essay. And it will. It will write a pretty darn good essay. But it's going to be devoid of emotion. Because you see this. I mean, I turn on my TV and the little voice goes, now playing, and it makes mistakes all the time. So if Rocky 3 is playing, it calls it Rocky I. So AI is not going to get it right all the time. So that human touch that needs to be there, if you use Chat GPT, go right ahead. But I guarantee you, people that read essays for a living are going to know that you didn't write it. So if you use it at all, use it for revision, use it for ideas, and stay away from the way that it writes, because it writes in a very stilted, formal fashion. That's not you. Again, you're 17. That's not you. That's not you. I do find that a lot of students become anxious, scared. They don't want to offend, or they don't want to do anything that might in some way ruin their chances. So they sort of become not themselves. They go into a bit of a shell. And it turns out that those kinds of essays work against them, because now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this is a 17-year-old? This sounds like a 40-year-old to do. So keep that spontaneity, keep that keep that teenage energy going, because that's what colleges really want to see with that. Right? Now, in terms of outstanding essays, I'm not going to share any particular ones, but I'm going to give you some qualities. They are edited well. They are grammatically correct. Now, that's not the reason you write the essay, but if I see too many errors in syntax and number and tense, it's going to work against you. Well, the thing is, what's better, good writing or good grammar? Both. Both. You have to have both of them that are in there to do. So it will have that kind of structure that makes it. Now, does that mean it has to be formal, upper class, white people, stilted English? No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Grammar is correct no matter what color you are. So it doesn't have to be a specific way of writing. I would say 20, 30 years ago, students were penalized if they didn't write like that. Well, last Tuesday when I was with Muffy on my yacht, shut up, right? So no, we don't, thank God we don't have that anymore to do. Okay? Essays are typically passionate, not necessarily to the point where they're jumping off the page, but you can tell this is something about which you really care. And essays can be, dare I say this word, complimentary. Now, you may have been taught, you shouldn't brag about yourself. That's being arrogant. That's being conceited. No. If you're telling me a story and you are the hero of that story, it's not bragging. It's just like in activities. If you're listing what you've done and you've had some pretty amazing accomplishments, that's not bragging, right? Bragging is writing an essay that says, I'm better than everybody else. Yeah, that's bragging. But please feel free to show me your best self in that writing. I would avoid most curse words. There are some older readers that would be astonished if they saw the F word. And that's not really what you would do in a formal essay anyway for that. You can do some slang, of course, perfectly fine to do that, but leave the chief ones out of this, because it's just not right in a formal type of essay to do. And the passion that you show can be based on the topic itself or what the topic meant for you. Okay? The tone of your essay, that's absolutely correct, Kate. Absolutely correct to do. Okay? If you write an angry essay, yeah, there might be some pretty strong language in that. If you write a poetic type of essay, probably not. Probably not. So that's a perfectly good point with that to do. So I've had essays and I've read, I probably actually read probably about 30,000 in the years I was at Swarthmore, because it was 12 years, 7 years as dean, 5 years in admissions, and probably about 2,000 plus per year. So about 30,000 essays sounds about right. Some of them were remarkable. Almost all of them were good. Some of them were downright weird. Like there were some that I really didn't understand. I had to go find somebody else and go, do you know what they're talking about? And usually they didn't know either. So I felt a little better with that. Because sometimes we would get students that were like really, really smart. And I'm thinking, maybe I just didn't get what they're trying to tell me. So, but there are a few that stood out, most of which had, okay. Did any of you ever watch the Seinfeld show? Okay, I didn't think so, sorry. So Jerry Seinfeld was a comedian, and he was the first to do a show that it wasn't a reality show, but it was part scripted and part improv. So the Seinfeld show was sort of like about nothing. Those essays were sometimes the best of all, because there wasn't a single theme, but there was this sense of the student really being real for that. So sometimes I got stories about a fish and how that fish affected the student's life. And sometimes I got stories about a wagon. Like, and those, it's wonderful when you can really draw conclusions on your life based on one specific incident. So if, for example, let's say you're a 12-year-old in senior little league and you hit 2 home runs, 2 singles, and pitch a 2-hit shutout. You're like the total star of the game. And you come in for practice 2 days later and you're talking about this. Okay, you're bragging a little bit. Okay. And one of your coaches, who no matter what you do, you can't please, looks up at you and go and says, why didn't you hit 3 home runs? I don't know that I ever recovered from that. I just thought I'm never going to be that good a baseball player if I can't please him. And that started me on a downhill slide. I was a pretty good player in Little League and not as good in senior. Never made my high school baseball team. But here's a great irony for you. I went to Swarthmore College, which probably had the worst baseball team on the East Coast. So I got to play. We were so bad, but I got to play. Didn't matter for that. So those kinds of moments make a good essay, typically, to do. I've had some that have been intellectually incredibly agile, like throwing ideas like you would if you were an actual writer. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I've had essays that describe another person instead, like, please don't write me an essay about how wonderful your grandfather is. Your grandfather's not going to college. You are. Okay, so yay, Grammy, good for you, but don't write me about that to do. So a couple of essays that stood out even farther were the ones that connected some of the dots in the application. So I would look at the activities, I would look at the recommendations, I would look at the choice of courses, I would see that, and the essay would sort of bring this all together so that you have somebody who's artistic and scientific, and you have this person giving you a background in the essay about how those looped together in their life, and you're like, there we go. Caitlin.
I'm just curious, has there ever been a time where like a student was like really good in like everything that they did, like activities and stuff like that, but their essay just was not the best and they still got in? Like,
Yes.
how much weight does like how much weight does your essay have when it's like not the best, but everything else is like shining?
Rigor, strength of curriculum courses you choose, grades, testing if you use it, letters of recommendation, essay. So if the first 4 are really strong, the essay can be mediocre and you're good. If the first 4 are very good, but maybe not all the way up to admit, and the essay spectacular, it brings you up for that. Yeah, the essay will never admit you or deny you. It's just one piece. It can be a great enhancement or it can be fatal. And I'll give you an example. Back, I think my next to the last year at Swarthmore, we received an application from a young woman who lived in a suburb of Lexington, Kentucky. Now, this is probably a little more rural than we're used to. Lexington itself is a pretty small city, pretty famous only because the Kentucky Derby is run there, but good for them. So she went to a small public high school and she had a terrific record. Oh my gosh, she did really well. And her essay was, I wanted to cry. She talked about how her family had fallen apart. Her mother had ditched them. She had a younger brother. Her mother had gone away. She was about 8 years old. The father and the brother and she ended up living in their van for a while. She kind of took over the role of being the mom and then just made her way through high school, staying with friends and doing. I was like, oh my God. And you still were able to do what you did? Oh my God. So we were interested. We were definitely interested in her. And it came to be around the middle of January, and we needed her mid-year grade report, which all schools will ask for, even if you're admitted early. All schools ask for your mid-year grade report, what you did in the first half of senior year. Didn't get one from her school. So Swarthmore's small enough that we notice these things. And so I called the counselor at her high school. And I got through to him, nice fellow, and talking about this. And I said that we're interested and we need her mid-year report. And he said, oh, I don't know that she told me she applied. Well, it's okay, I'll get this for you. And while he was pulling it up, I started talking to him about her essay and what an incredible life she must have had. And there was complete silence on the other end of the line, because everything she wrote in that essay was false. Completely false. She was never homeless. She was never living in a van. Her mother did leave the home for a while, but none of that was true. Whew. So I asked the counselor if he would please find a way to guide her to getting some mental health help. So that was, yes. Do people lie in their essays? I'm sure they do. Certainly some exaggerate, but that was certainly the worst case. And unfortunately turned out to be a memorable thing because of the way it turned out to be. Okay. So it's just about 7:30. I want to stop. And if there's any questions that people have,